And welcome back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. Kevin Bowen. Per usual, apologize for the sound quality. I know some people are already complaining about it. We're not even 10 seconds into it. But family vacation during the summer. It is July 1. Thank the Lord, halfway of 2020 is over. So we are up at the beautiful Lubbers family lake house. Ross Lubbers, my brother-in-law, the most loyal listener in the family by far, is with me. He will be producing today's pod. Chris Presley is, I believe, on a vacation, maybe Charlotte area. So, Ross, I appreciate you taking time, man.
Absolutely. Really happy to be here. Definitely a longtime fan. Pretty nervous for all the listeners out there, but yeah, really excited to be here with you.
I love it. Ross has been tremendous with Rosie Bowe. A little update on her. She's doing great, sleeping pretty well. So Mom's got her right now downstairs. But on today's pod, we'll focus on superlatives for the 2020 Colts. You know, it's crazy to think we are less than a month away from training camp. And rookies report July 22nd, veterans the 28th. And so hopefully we'll get some sort of training camp schedule somewhat soon. But I kind of wanted to go over this. This was kind of making a run on Twitter a few weeks ago. Just, you know, your general best player, key new ad, could surprise, most overrated, most underrated, you know, things like that. So we'll get into a few of those today. Have a ton of Twitter questions that I've saved over the last week. Sorry we're coming to you on Wednesday afternoon. I know usually it's a Tuesday morning thing, but hopefully you guys will still have plenty of time to listen to this. Chris and I will be back in studio next week, and we'll get back into our podcast. But Ross, let's kick it off with some of those superlatives.
Yeah, let's hop right in, Kev. So first one for the 2020 season, best player. Who do you think will be the best player for the Colts roster for the upcoming season?
Yeah, you know, it's probably the guy that's been the best player the last two seasons, and that would be Quentin Nelson. You know, to me, when you get into the debate of like best player, I think you have to clarify of that is not the most impactful player. You know, and I don't want like that to be a knock on Quentin Nelson. He still is the best individual player on this football team. Is he the most impactful player? No, he's not. But he dominates the position he plays. He is the best guard in football. He will get a Zach Martin type of contract whenever the Colts decide to, you know, attack that. Probably not next offseason, but maybe the offseason after that when he's heading into that fifth year of his rookie deal. And I think you can make the argument he might be the best offensive lineman in football.
Wow.
Regardless.
Wow.
Of position. So I think when you look at the best player on this football team, you know, some would probably vote for Darius Leonard. You know, you might get a couple votes, honestly, for Kenny Moore, a guy that, again, I still don't think gets the amount of attention that he deserves. But I will go with Quentin Nelson as the best player on the 2020 Colts.
Certainly. And there's definitely a difference between most impactful and best player.
And, you know, it's not like he plays guard. And we've talked about this before. Quentin Nelson can be perfect throughout the course of an NFL game, and the Colts could score 3 points.
Yeah, totally.
But if Phillip Rivers was perfect for the entire game, you're scoring probably at least 20, 30, like something like that. So that's just the debate. And I don't want to get back into like, do you take a guard at number 6 overall? Because I do believe there was a cultural shift that needed to happen with that unit. And Nelson has spearheaded that. So, again, the best player on this football team is the guy that wears number 56.
Awesome. Going into the next one here, Kev. Key new ad. So the best player that we've added to this roster for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think it's DeForest Buckner. You know, I don't know for those listeners that maybe missed the article. I posted something maybe about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. With Bill Polian having some quotes in there, and obviously the Polian age Colts, the Tony Dungy era Colts, they played the same defense that this era is playing as well. And he, you know, was very blunt and honest in saying that we were not a Super Bowl team until they made the trade for Booger McFarland, which I believe was in October of that Super Bowl season.
Yep, from the Bucs. Yep.
Yeah, and that was, I think, a second-round pick. And obviously number 13 overall is totally different than that. But it just goes to show you how important that position is. And then obviously you throw in a talented player like Buckner, who was a former top 10 pick and has played at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level in his career. The interior pressure means everything. You know, we've talked about in this podcast so many times of quarterbacks have shredded the Colts because they get into rhythm, they get into timing, and you've given a shooter that's missed 10 in a row that easy fast break layup to start a game, and boom, that totally changes that guy's thinking and where his confidence is at. And I think if you're able to, you know, first series of the game, all of a sudden a third down rush and week one and Gardner Minshew's pumping it twice, now all of a sudden that he's naturally thinking about that for the rest of the game. So I think Buckner is the key new add. I don't want to lose sight of Michael Pittman, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Obviously Rivers would be atop this list considering the position he plays. But here I'm going with, similar to what I did with best player, I'm going with just what the talented guy can do. And let's be honest, Philip Rivers is a 1-year, maybe 2-year fix. Michael Pittman, if everything goes according to plan, he's your number one wideout, honestly, for the next 10 years whenever T.Y. Hilton, passes that torch off to him. So I just feel like with Hilton's, future up in the air a bit, Michael Pittman is not only very important for the now, but he's important for the long term, and that's why he's on this list and Philip Rivers is not.
Yeah, Pittman has a little bit of a prove it in him too as a rookie, where
for sure.
Buckner's been
Buckner's an established guy. He's been in the league for a handful of years. And I talked about this, I think, more last offseason. What I wanted to see from the Colts in last year's draft was kind of a passing of the torch.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it with Costanzo to the next left tackle. Justin Houston to the next pass rushing defensive end, T.Y. Hilton to the next number one wideout. And we're a little bit unsure at left tackle. Well, I guess we're a lot unsure at left tackle. Who am I kidding? D end, maybe it's Kamoko Terry, but wideout, there is a clear guy there, and that's Michael Pittman. More so than Paris Campbell. I know both are taking the second round, but I look at Campbell as more of that, gadgety isn't the right word, but he's just more of a chess piece you would move all over in a different role. So, yeah, it is huge for Michael Pittman in the future of this football team, and whoever is the future guy under center.
Sure, absolutely. Heading to the next one here, Kevin, could surprise. So who on this roster are you looking at and kind of eyeing on a week-to-week basis as someone that we expect to surprise us on the field?
It's a great debate. I think a lot of people would give, plenty of different answers. I'm going to go with Rock Ya-Sin, and I really liked how he finished last season. He had the Denver game where he has the 5 penalties, and Cortland Sutton just made him look like his, what in that game. But the reason they took Rock Ya-Sin at 34 overall I think it was 34 overall, was because of what he stands for, and just that high character guy. And I think there was a bit of a wake-up call of like, all right, this isn't Presbyterian. This isn't Temple. I mean, this is the NFL. And the Colts threw him into the fire. I mean, shadowing Cortland Sutton is nothing to turn your head at. So if he can take the next step and be the long outside corner, allow Kenny Moore to continue to play in the slot, now you pair that up with seemingly a more disruptive front, that to me could be a surprise. And I don't think we've talked about him maybe as much as we should, but that corner group is a bit of a question mark. But if he surprises, and you would think, okay, second round pick, guys making that natural jump from year 1 to year 2, he would be the guy that I would put in there. The other name that I keep on coming back to is Jonathan Taylor. And some might say, well, I mean, I expect him to play well, but you have the incumbent, and Marlon Mack is a 1,000-yard rusher. Jonathan Taylor was drafted 80 spots ahead of him for a reason. And it's the combination of the size and the speed. And a few weeks back, I remember someone tweeted at me like, oh, Jonathan Taylor, I think could be Edgerrin James 2.0. That's incredibly high praise. I don't want to put that on him. But that dude put up numbers at Wisconsin that were just stupid. And he weighs 225 plus. He runs 4.3. I mean, there is the ability there of, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, insert some of these Devin Singletary, some of these other second, third round running backs that have been taken in the past couple of years that have come in here and been instant impact. So, for a rookie to be a 1,000-yard rusher, he's going to need some help in that Marlon, either gets banged up or just they all of a sudden give Jonathan Taylor a bunch of carries. But you don't expect rookies to come in here and give you that sort of offensive production. I think Taylor could be in that group because, again, from a physically gift standpoint, he is more gifted than Marlon Mack. That's no knock on Marlon, but that's just simply where Jonathan Taylor is at. So he's a guy that I would throw on this list.
Certainly. Okay, heading to the next one here. Takes a leap. So who's someone on the roster that you think this year either needs to or will take a leap in their next step of their progression?
Yeah, this is something we talked about more so, I think, on a podcast about a month ago, so I won't hit on these two names very long, but it would be Kamoko Toure on defense and Paris Campbell on offense. Toure has, seemingly he has the pitch, and when I say that, it's the speed rush trait, it's the blue trait coming off the edge of that 98-mile-per-hour fastball. And Robert Mathis has been working with him so much in the offseason to try to make him more of the Greg Maddux, if you will. More of the well-rounded guy that, okay, can you counter? These left tackles are extremely athletic in the league. When they, eat up that speed rush or they play for that, do you have the spin move? Do you have a bit of a bull rush? Can you kind of one-arm them? Those sorts of things. Campbell obviously falls in the injury category. It's... In a way, I feel like Paris Campbell is a bit hard to screw up. And some people might be like, what are you saying with that? I go back to, and honestly, I think you and I were at this game, Ross. It was opening night in Bloomington maybe 2 years ago, Ohio State IU.
Yep.
I think it was like a Thursday nighter.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't go to IU to watch the football team play. You often go to tailgate or watch the opponent. And that was simply the case. It was a great tailgate, beautiful night down in Bloomington. And then we went in the stadium and watched Ohio State for a couple quarters. And, Paris Campbell was just
lit him up.
Oh, my gosh. That 21 was a blur on the field. And what he did in that game and what he continued to do throughout that season was take these low percentage touches. Mm-hmm. So, easy to get him the ball in a flat, in a screen game, jet sweep. Those sorts of things, and let him do the rest. And so I think that's why it is a bit hard to screw up, because as long as he can stay healthy, seemingly he only needs a couple touches a game to really impact things. And I know last season he didn't do that. He didn't have any kind of flash moment. Sure, there was a little bit here in Tennessee game and a little bit against Pittsburgh, but he never had the holy shit, oh my God, that's a 2-yard swing pass and Paris Campbell's 40 yards down the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're waiting for. So those two guys would be in the take a leap category.
Sure. And specifically with Paris Campbell, I think the pressure is a little bit more with him because he's got Pascal and he has Pittman right on his coattails. Right. And I think seemingly those three are almost battling for the long-term number 2 wide receiver. Not even long-term, because who knows what T.Y.'s future looks like. But
no, I think that's a fair statement. This is a Paris Campbell sat on the sidelines last year and watched the rest of his rookie class tear up the NFL, or at least the vast majority of those wideouts. Mm-hmm. A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf. We're talking about guys drafted right around him, some guys drafted even after him. And I asked him that question earlier in the spring of does that eat at you a little bit? And he was very candid about that, and that how does it not eat at you?
Yeah.
When you have 4 injuries and 3 surgeries. So, yeah, that's spot on, Ross, of this is a guy that can entrench in that wideout core, because and I think I mentioned this in last week's podcast, we forget Zach Pascal's only about 25. He's not 28, 29 years old, Dontrell Inman type of age. So yeah, Campbell for me falls squarely in this category.
Do not sleep on Pascal, that's for sure. All right, going into the next one here, most overrated on the Colts roster. Tough subject to talk about, but most overrated here.
Yeah, it is, and I'm sure I'll have people that will tag these players on Twitter because I've mentioned this in the podcast. So I'm glad you decide to live that life, and hope you enjoy that. I'll say, okay, I'm going to start on defense. I'll go with Justin Houston, and let me preface by there are caveats in this that I really look at the Colts roster and I don't know who I would throw into what we think is the quintessential overrated term. I really don't. Maybe you're in a small market, but I don't look at any of these players and think they're vastly overrated by any means. So take this with a grain of salt. But what I would say with Houston is, and there's probably a reason why he didn't appear on a lot of those kind of all-pro type lists last season. If you go back and watch his 11 sacks, it wasn't the most dominant 11 sacks. Don't get me wrong, 11 sacks is 11 sacks, but I want to say he had 18 quarterback hits. And if you look at where that number ranked in the NFL, it wasn't in the top 20 pass rushers. Mm-hmm. So I just think what you want to see is a little bit more consistency. I remember one game, Hell, it might have been Jacksonville at home. He hadn't had a sack all game. It was a blowout. He gets a sack on a backup left tackle, and then they take him out of the game. You know, it was like one of those things where just get this guy his stat and then get him out of the game. So I just want to see a little bit more of consistency out of Justin Houston from a pressure quarterback hit standpoint. The other name that I'm going to throw on this list, and some people will be like, Kevin, you know, you've always talked about how this guy's done everything that he's been asked to do, and he has. But I'll throw Marlon Mack on there. And that'll surprise some people.
Surprises me.
And again, when I look at offense, like, who do you put on there? I don't want to call Hilton overrated. Jack Doyle is certainly not overrated. Nobody on that offensive line I consider overrated. Rivers, to me, he's just a middle-of-the-pack quarterback right now. He's not, I don't look at him. So I guess I'm coming from my own point of view. But when you look at Marlon Mack, I put him on there for this reason. How much is the offensive line doing this for him?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jonathan Williams comes off the bench last year. Hell, he comes off borderline the couch and rushes for 100 yards in back-to-back games. Look at Jordan Wilkins' yards per carry in the league. I'm pretty sure it still hovers over 5. So,
sure,
you know, you find guys, and then you look at Nyheim Hines, and you're like, well, that's not a great yards per carry. And you look at the Colts record without Marlon Mack, and they're like 1-8. So there are counters to this. But I wanted to put a name on this list. I wanted to put an offensive player. So I tried to at least give you something. I don't know if I totally agree with my own thought process.
Sure.
But there is some validity to, like, okay. And this goes back to the debate about maybe even taking Jonathan Taylor in round 2.
That I was going to ask, hypothetical, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't get drafted here, is Marlon Mack still this most overrated on the roster? Because he has he's a essential piece to the puzzle without Jonathan Taylor in the back pocket.
For sure. And I don't want to lose sight of that. But it's one of those things of, like, you know, could a senior year high school Ross Lubbers average 4.1 yards per carry behind this O-line?
I hope not.
Did you play offense at all in high school?
No. I was a defensive guy.
Purely defense?
Yeah.
Great corner. Safety?
Safety, corner.
Hybrid,
little hybrid.
Yeah, call him Julian Blackman, third-round pick for the Colts. Yeah, I mean, it is a fair statement. But, again, to go back to Taylor in the second round, it's the whole debate about running back. And when you have this offensive line that seemingly Jonathan Williams, again, can come off this inactive list and have 2 back-to-back 100-yard games, I think there's just a reason to have the debate. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, tag Marlon Mack, Justin Houston. Luckily, all our calls will be Zoom this year, and I can just not turn my video on, so hopefully they don't know who I am.
These players will be a little bit more fun to tag. Most underrated. Underrated on the Colts roster this year.
Yeah, defense is obvious. It is Kenny Moore.
For sure.
He wasn't even a Pro Bowl alternate, which the fact that Xavier Rhodes made the Pro Bowl last year and Kenny Moore did not just makes me think that game is the biggest sham in the world. Offensively, I think it's Braden Smith. And there are still people that want to move him to guard, and I'm like, why? He plays right tackle at a very nice level. He only played, tackle in college for 2 games and has come in here in the NFL and has just been a solid right tackle. And I think he's vastly underrated. I know Frank Reich certainly agrees with that. So he is he's on this list.
Awesome. Anything else to add to the superlatives before we get into Twitter?
I think we had
Twitter
one
questions?
more. I wanted to say prove it year. Maybe I didn't send this to you.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, on our rundown.
Okay, let's do one more. Let's prove it year. Who needs to prove it?
I posted something on Monday. For those that missed it on the website, check that out. It is the Colts have, you can make the case they have 12 starters that are in contract years.
Big contract year.
Big. And some notable names on that list. So 2 names, obviously, will come off that list that I will have as prove it years. Let's start with Malik Hooker. We've talked about him a ton on this podcast. This is a prove it year for himself. It is a prove it year, honestly, probably more so for the other 31 teams in the NFL. I think the Colts have told Malik Hooker through their actions what they think of him. I do. I know some people are like, well, he could still come back. You drafted this guy in the 3rd round. You don't pick up a reasonable 5th year, rookie option. Like, you have told him through your actions what you think. And that is this. You are hesitant, more than hesitant, on if he is part of your long-term future. That's what you said to him. So this will prove it year. He's in a contract year now. He doesn't have the 5th year security of that 1st round pick. So this is definitely that for him. I am so curious to see how he reacts to this offseason. Secondly, we'll go with Phil. Phil Rivers. Phil with an F. I wish more Phils would spell their names with F. How about Phil Mickelson's sunglasses on tour right now? What are your thoughts?
I love it. I think Phil Mickelson has done a great job of almost reshaping his image for people of our younger generation to like him. Everything from hitting bombs to his fireside chats to his swaggy sunglasses, man. He
is one of a kind. When you love Tiger as much as I do, and obviously you do as well, Ross. I'm trained to hate Phil. I think Phil's a loser, to be frank, which I know sounds harsh, but Phil Rivers rocking. I had someone say, "Don't mention how many kids that he has because you say it every podcast." So I won't. So let's move on. Phil Rivers, prove it for himself more so than anything. I think because you played 16 years in one place. The Chargers the Chargers didn't have Patrick Mahomes sitting on the bench, like they didn't. They had Tyrod Taylor, and yet they still said, "Phil, we've seen enough. Move on." I mean, how is that not a bit of a prove it year? So, can you add to the Hall of Fame resume? Incredible career for Phillip Rivers, for sure. But to bolster the Hall of Fame resume, to find success in the month of January, that has eluded him. We've talked about it. They've made the playoffs one time in the last 6 years. I think the Chargers won like 2 playoff games in the last decade. I mean, that's not January football for a guy that has put up the numbers that he's put up. So I think it is a prove it year. And I think he hears some of that chatter. He doesn't want to go all the way there, but he knows that he hears some of it of like the arm strength. Mm-hmm. What do you have left in you? You can't do it without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. The questions are there. I think they're fair to be asked, and Phillip Rivers will have a beautiful opportunity in this offense. I mean, you talk about a good opportunity for him to find.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much the same offense. I mean, Peyton didn't have the same offense. He went to Adam Gase and company out there in Denver. They kind of had to be reconstructed a little bit. So, yeah, Hooker, Rivers, 2 of those names on the list of free agents.
Yeah, quick follow-up question for you here, Kev. When you think about Phillip Rivers and him proving it, someone who's a 16-year vet, he's been there, he's done that. From a purely win-loss perspective, where do you think the threshold of proving it is for him? Like, where does he need to do to say to the critics out there, I'm proving it in this new environment here?
Here's my middle finger, and I'm not flicking off you like Billy Bullock got in the game in the 2008 playoffs inside of the RCA, or was that Lucas Oil? I think it was May, last game in the RCA. I think on last week's podcast I mentioned for T.Y. Hilton to consider himself prove it next contract. I said 14-ish games, 900-ish yards. That to me deserves a third contract. For Rivers, it's hard to quantify for me the numbers exactly or the win-loss. Honestly, I think anything better than 8-8, the Colts almost have to run it back.
Sure.
I just think that's where you back yourself into your corner, because what are you going to see from Jacob Eason that all of a sudden makes you say, here are the keys to the franchise?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to give Phillip Rivers a new contract before the draft. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to trade up and get Justin Fields or Trey Lance or a pipe dream of Trevor Lawrence or Sam Ellinger, whoever these other quarterbacks are that you guys want to fall in love with, boy, that's a big risk. I mean, that is a big risk. So I would say anything. I don't necessarily agree with it personally. If you go 8-8 or 9-7 and Phillip Rivers looks like a middle of the pack, I would be done with him.
Yeah.
Because I want to, you guys know this. These listeners know this. I want to get started on the next era.
Mm-hmm.
This era is not going to last more than 2 years. So I want to get started on it quicker. But I think from a Colts point of view, keep it under 18 interceptions, over 4,000 yards, 65%, and you go 8-8 or better. I think Phillip is under center in 2021.
Certainly. Great. Anything else, Kev, that you want to make?
No. Right, that was our superlatives. For those that have missed it throughout the week, we have posted Burning Questions series we've started on the website. So check that out as well. But let's get to Twitter questions, man.
Awesome. Let's hop right in. First one here is from Flippin. Got to be Flippin kidding me. That's what it
do it again. Flippin?
Yeah, Flippin. I would love your take on the linebacker core after this year. I can't imagine Walker getting a contract. So I think that's a question there. But he's asking, what's Walker's future look like, and your take on the linebacker core.
So Anthony Walker is one of the 11 or 12 starters that you would throw into the contract year. I think it might be the best group on the team, not named offensive line or running back. I think it might be better than the D-line. Maybe not. But I love the group. You guys know full well. I love Anthony Walker. I'll say this about the future. Bobby Okereke and Darius Leonard aren't going anywhere. That's your future. And what about EJ Speed? He's the guy that we just don't talk about. 5th-round pick. Played 33 snaps, I think it is, last year. 28 in one game. I think it was Oakland. So it's not like we've seen him in a defensive setting very often. Flipping, because of the name, I'll give an actual answer. I think Anthony Walker gets another contract. I do. And I don't know. Don't ask me why, and I'm glad you didn't ask me why. He might not be the Mike of the future, but I just think he fits somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. Somebody tweeted at me about this a couple weeks ago. It might have been you, honestly, Flipping. And Darius Leonard. Darius Leonard favorited the tweet. He wants Anthony Walker back.
If Darius Leonard has anything to say about it, Walker's coming back.
And I can't remember if we have that Twitter. I think we do. So I'll wait maybe to get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
But I'm with you, Ross. I honestly think that there is a little bit of influence now. Not a crazy amount, but it will mean something to Chris Ballard if, your best defensive player enjoys playing next to that guy.
Sure. Moving to the next one here from Drew. It's a 2-part question, so I'll ask you the first one, and then we'll get to the second one. He wants to know about the contracts coming forth for our best players. So Brandon Scherf is the highest paid guard at $15 million a year. How much will Nelson make when he is due for a new contract?
Well, he's resetting the market. It'll be the highest paid, most guaranteed. Zach Martin was 6 for 84, and I want to say the guarantees hovered around, I thought 40, but 32 was jumping in my head as well. It was significant. I mean, a 6-year deal is absolutely absurd and well deserved for a player of Martin's caliber. But for a non-quarterback to get a 6-year deal, you just don't see that every day in the NFL. So Nelson will reset the market. It will be 6 years. It will be, what did Martin? So 6 for 84 breaks down to 14 a year. I mean, he said Brandon Scherf's the highest paid guard at 15. I mean, I don't see how Nelson's not anything less than 17.
Yeah.
Because, again, we're projecting probably 2 off seasons away.
Yeah.
So Nelson's in year 3.
That's a.
I mean, what do you think? 5 for 17, 5.
Well, I mean, if he does 6 for 17, that's 100 mil plus 102 million. So
yeah, and then it's all about the guarantees. You know, I mean, 50 of that guaranteed. These numbers sound outrageous in my head because he's guard, but he's a Hall of Famer after 2 seasons.
Sure.
So, it's not something that I think they'll do next summer, but the following summer.
Drew continues and says, same for Leonard. I don't see him getting a 23.5 mil money on his second contract, which is Khalil Mack type money. But he's curious, would he surpass Bobby Wagner, the highest paid middle linebacker, at 18 mil a year? I'm
pretty sure he will. I'm not maybe as confident as Nelson, but I think Leonard would get past that. No chance he's 23.5. I mean, I can't see that. I'm sorry. Pass rushers are a different breed. But 20-ish, yeah, that makes sense for me. Again, I think Nelson will shatter it. I think Leonard will surpass, but not, maybe shatter it. Now, having said this, we're talking about an off-ball linebacker, and we're talking about a guard as the 2 highest paid players in the league at their positions. We're not talking about a quarterback. We're not talking about a number 1 wideout, a number 1 corner, a left tackle, a defensive end. The books are about to get tight, folks. The books are about to get tight, and you're going to number crunch. And Mike Bloom, the capologist, if you will, for the Colts, is going to earn his money because you're going to have to crunch the numbers, and it means you desperately need the future quarterback of your franchise to be on the rookie deal. I know some people are like, what about Aaron Rodgers in 2 years? It sounds great. I'd love looking at Danica, on a few Jumbotron shots, but I mean, come on. You got to have that quarterback on the rookie deal.
Danica belongs in Indy.
She does.
She belongs in
She
Indy.
does. Danica is the name of my Calcutta Indy 500. I won't give the full name, but she is Indy. She's had a couple great runs.
She did, yeah.
Shout out to the IMS for having fans there. I know Ross isn't maybe thrilled because it impacts some of his schedule this summer, but
hey, you know what? I'm excited for this weekend. We're going to get a race in at the IMS. We're going to get two races in at the IMS.
We are.
We'll probably be gambling on it on our vacation.
We're going to get a little scratch on that.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, moving forward here, Alec. Great pod this week. Glad to have you back. I got to thinking the other day and wondered which Colts players you think would have the best chance to be professional athletes in a sport other than football. Ooh. Obviously not counting who played other sports in college, i.e. Mo Ali Cox.
Wow. Alec, I like it. This is good. Mo Ali is atop the list. Shout out to Brian Shelbourne, great friend of mine. Him and I were just so intimidated watching Mo Ali Cox play college basketball at VCU. Well, let's start with Hooker. I believe a D1 basketball recruit out of Western PA at a time. I know a lot of people talk about Jacoby and his game.
His basketball game?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Football game. Yeah. It's one of those things, and I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast. You walk into an NFL locker room, there will be no topics debated more than this. Who's better, LeBron or Michael? And who's the best basketball player in that locker room? I mean, literally, I swear that's all they talk about. That's all they talk about. Just watch me in high school, this about that. I'll say this. I watched Darius Leonard. I think he posted a little Insta story. Him in the batting cage.
Wow.
I liked what I saw, man.
Got some hand-eye coordination to him?
Can you imagine Leonard out in left field, roaming?
Wow.
Put him in the middle of your order?
Or, him coming home, rounding third, bullying the catcher.
Pray for Tucker Barnhart, whatever that catcher is. You got anybody that come to mind? I mean, Nelson, I think Nelson throwing the shot put. I don't know if that's a professional athlete, but or maybe the hammer toss, the world's strongest men event.
Sure.
The hammer. Grover Stewart would be in there as well.
Not sure that's a professional.
Yeah, I know. Maybe more of an Olympic sport there.
Mm-hmm. I think wide receivers always come to mind as some of the best athletes. Wide receivers and corners, they're quick. They can jump high traditionally. Right. So I wonder, if you give T.Y. a basketball as a point guard, is he just going to run around?
They've said T.Y. is a really good basketball player as well. Pascal might be the best pure athlete, I think. I think he's your emergency quarterback. So if you dress, 2 in a game and they would both get hurt, I think it would be Pascal. I do remember, Rock Ya-Sin was a 2-time state champion wrestler. Again, I don't know if that translates to the WWE, but he would be on that list. And this would be a great question, I think, to, ask candidly, maybe Frank Reich or Chris Ballard, but Chris is so enamored with these testing numbers, the combine numbers of, wingspan and vertical and 3-cone and short shuttle and all that. Some of these guys, that's got to translate to other sports, right? I mean, you would think. You would think,
yeah. It has to.
Yeah.
Has to.
That's a great question, Alec.
Alec also congratulated you on Baby Bo, and I forgot to add that into the question.
Alec. I appreciate that. Kevin and Uncle Ross appreciate that.
We do. All right, moving on here. Next with Will. He's got a fantasy draft question, so he disclaims that, but he has the following needs: running back, quarterback, wide receiver. A lot of needs for you there, Will. He has 4 first-round picks after trades. Mind you, we are only drafting from rookie class. 2, 5, 11, 12 in a 12-person league. He wants your advice.
And this is a fantasy dynasty draft question, which I think is key to remember here.
Okay.
Because, we're talking long-term. Will, this is intense. You are a fantasy player. Corn Washington, former roommate of mine, could probably help you out more than this. But, 2, 5, 11, 12. I would probably throw, I'm going to take Tua at 2. I'm assuming Burrow's going 1, right?
He has to.
If you're only drafting from the rookie class, I think Burrow goes 1. I don't know. Do you trust Tua medically?
Yeah, long term. So it's a dynasty. It's a long term.
Right. You go with Herbert?
Or, do you...
Or are you taking the best skill player?
Yeah, are you taking a best long-term skill player?
I'm going to go Tua at 2.
Okay.
But I know you can debate that. At 5, I'd probably go the best running back on the board. I'm thinking, honestly, I think Jonathan Taylor at 5, if I could get him there. Because I'm thinking, back to the draft. Mm-hmm. Historically deep wideout class.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get Taylor at 5 and then come back at 11, maybe I'm getting Justin Jefferson there. Some quarterbacks off the board. So maybe I'm getting Pittman at 12. KJ Hamler is a name that I like, in Denver. If Drew Lock can hit those two guys, and along with Cortland Sutton, can kind of get it together. This is a tough one. This is great. I mean, Will, I don't know a lot about fantasy dynasty drafts, but yeah, hopefully that's a little advice.
Sounds intense. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds. If you've got a wife, pray for her, because that really sounds intense, man.
Godspeed to you, Will.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, moving on. Next from Matt. Who is more likely to get extended? T.Y. if he has 1,100 yards and 9 TDs, or Marlon Mack if he has 750 yards and 12 TDs? Yeah,
Matt asked this question when I was filling in for J&B last week. I appreciated Matt listening and sending me that email, so I thought let's throw it in here as well. If Hilton gives me 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns, that means he's got to be playing at least 13 games, right?
At least, yeah, for sure.
He's back.
He's back.
He's back. I mean, there's no questions asked to me. He's back. Now, with Mack, the 750 yards I don't love. Again, I'd love to see games played if I'm going to get nitpicky here. And I've mentioned this in the past few weeks, guys. The touchdown number is finicky to me. Like, okay, Marlon Mack, he gets the goal line touches. So he gets, 4 more touchdowns than Jonathan Taylor. Something like that. Like, I just think touchdown numbers are weird. I mean, unless he's breaking 5 40-yarders. To me, again, it's not so much what Marlon Mack can do. It's just, unless Jonathan Taylor tears the ACL, I just don't know how Marlon Mack comes back here, because I think he'll get a lead back role somewhere else.
For sure. Moving forward here from Tanner. Hey, Kevin, congrats on dad life. Hope all is well.
Thanks, Tanner.
On the next podcast, which is this one, I'd like to hear your 5-year forecast for this team. I feel like we can be anywhere between stuck in mediocrity and routine deep playoff runs. I also forgot to mention my last message. I'm a Knoxville native and highly recommend coming to Knoxville for a Tennessee versus Georgia-Florida game, which you said it should have been my bachelor party, and I agree. I kind of dropped the ball there, but
and we, you and I have talked about this. So my in-laws, 4 siblings in the Lubbers family: Matt, Maddie, Ross, and Anna. Anna is 6 years younger than Ross. And Ross and I have already decided that we've picked out Anna's fiance's bachelor party. Whenever that comes, tomorrow or 10 years down the road, we'll be going to an SEC football game.
We will.
So if you're listening to this and you marry Anna Lubbers, sorry about you, but we got to go.
Part of the criteria for coming into the family.
You need to be a solid golfer, and you got to go to an SEC football game for your bachelor party.
There's a small window of people out there that fall into that. Okay, so
he wants to know 5-year plan.
Yeah, are we going to be stuck in mediocrity, or are we going to have a routine deep playoff run? And I know those are 2 very ends of the spectrum here, but
Tanner, I hate to cop out, but it's going to come down to that quarterback, Ross. Quarterback purgatory isn't purgatory in the NFL; it's hell. Quarterback purgatory is hell. Look at the Bengals; that's hell. Like Dalton holding on for him for all those years, and Tannehill in Miami for all it's just
Redskins come to mind to me.
You wince when you hear those names.
Mm-hmm.
Routine deep playoff runs is too extreme for me. 5-year forecast. I think this team's in the playoffs 4 out of those 5 years, and I think at least one of those years will be deep.
Okay,
but I can't go routine deep playoff runs. I'm not going to stand on that ledge.
As a Colts fan, I'll take 4 out of the 5 next years for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on here from John. Hey, Kevin, congrats on the new baby. Let's say you're Chris Ballard and the Colts come out of the gate looking real hot, like contenders. Talking 6 to 8 wins in the first 8 games. Wow. If Malik Hooker starts playing like he was worth that 5th-year option and the Jets call offering Adams for a 2nd-round pick and Malik Hooker, do we just take the deal? Just for clarity's sake, let's say he's asking for $15 million a year for 4 years.
Yeah, we hit on this a lot on last week's podcast. I won't hit on it very long here, but I'm not. I go back to what I said last week. I'm not investing that much at safety.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, you're going to pay Darius Leonard the most money of any linebacker. Mm-hmm. You're going to pay Quentin Nelson the most money of any guard, and now you're going to pay I assume Jamal Adams to be the highest paid safety in the league.
He just seems like a diva.
And the rumored of the 8 teams he listed there. I mean, he's coming to Indy. Yeah. He's not walking up and down Mass Ave or hanging out on Georgia Street. I mean, it just, yeah.
Yep.
John, I want to throw your question in here, but I'm not. No, I'm not.
Cool. Moving on with Aaron here. You alluded to this earlier, but we're talking about Anthony Walker and Leonard's relationship. So he said, do you think Anthony Walker's close relationship with Leonard will have any effect on his chances of re-signing with the team next offseason?
This is the guy. Aaron was the one that tweeted me this question. And so obviously Darius Leonard searches his name on Twitter. Shout out to people that do that. And favorited this tweet. And maybe I think he might have responded, honestly.
Wow.
Which is big time.
Good for you, Aaron.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron. I'd frame that, put that on the fridge. Yeah, he said, I hope so, I think was Leonard's comment. And again, I would normally laugh at this, but I do think it plays a slight factor. Just because I think Walker's a great leader, smart leader of that unit. And I will say this, I think I want to focus on their chemistry with the positions that they play. You know, this isn't like a quarterback best friend with a right guard where it's like, does that really matter?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is like two linebackers that have to be, from a communication standpoint and an instinct standpoint, so much on the same page. So I actually think it plays a slight factor in that.
Sure. Moving on here from Scotty, probably not Scotty Gone, but shout out Scotty Gone. It's his 29th birthday today. Good friend of ours.
Scooter shot 79 this morning.
He did. He's up here at the on vacation with us, so shout out Scotty Gone. But this one's from Scotty. What is the reasoning behind the whole Mack situation is to set Jordan Wilkins up to be extended? He has produced when given the opportunity and has very low miles on him. Not to mention he'd be way cheaper to keep than Marlon Mack.
Yeah, it is a fair question. I will say this, Scotty. The thing about Wilkins is there's this little ankle issue that he had in training camp last year, and I'm just a little bit worried about just the long term of when is that running back red flag, waving.
Sure.
That's the thing, and I know he has that. And I think you have to remember Marlon Mack. Ross, look up how old Jordan Wilkins is, if you don't mind. Marlon Mack is young. I want to say he's just 24, Mack. And I'd be curious what Wilkins is. They're one draft class separate. But, Jordan Wilkins missed 2 games last season, and he got hardly any of the touches compared to Marlon Mack.
25 years old.
When's he turn 26?
July 18th. So he's almost 26.
So he's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He turns 26. July 18th, my brother's wedding. Shout out to Ryan Bowe and Kristen Krimp. I mean, that's almost 2 full years older than Marlon Mack, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I'll
confirm that. Yeah, Marlon Mack is 24.
He just turned it, right?
Just turned 24 in March, so yeah.
So you got to factor some of that in there as well. Now, having said that, you always need bodies at running back. So I get it. It's a fair question. Maybe you bring Wilkins back on a 1-year deal, something like that. He's not breaking the bank, so I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But you guys know how I think about running back. Draft one every year.
Every year. Moving on with Gabo, all the way from Mexico. Greetings from Mexico.
Love it.
Yeah, going international here. Which is the strongest position group and the weakest?
Strongest is running back, O-line, or linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to give you 3, but I think all 3 are defense are right there. Weakest to me, probably corner. Has some question marks. I would say wideout and tight end I'd throw in there. That might be more health related.
Mm-hmm.
Hilton, Campbell, Trey Burton. But again, I think Chris Ballard has done an outstanding job at balancing out this roster. Just a tremendous job of balancing out this roster from a depth standpoint.
Awesome. Moving forward here with Cody, this is a 2-part question, so we'll ask the first one first. Do you think the Colts used Hines enough in the passing game last year when they were spread thin in the receiving core?
No, I don't. He had a lot more catches with Andrew Luck than he did last year with Jacoby. And I think he will be used a lot this year. Phillip Rivers has a knack for it. We know that full well. People have talked, or Frank Reich, I should say, has talked about Roosevelt Nix as a fullback playing about 10 to 15% of offensive snaps. So maybe some lead blocking stuff is there. But I think Hines can do some 2-back stuff of jet sweeps and wildcat and just a little bit more creativity from a multiple back standpoint that doesn't include just necessarily Roosevelt Nix at fullback.
Sure. And in a segue into that, the second part of the question from Cody is, do you see the Colts running 2 running back sets like the Browns did last season? And if so, which 2 backs do you see most immediate in that scheme?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to kind of gauge. I would say a little bit. I don't think it'll be a massive part of it. Because, again, if you're 2 running backs, are you taking away a tight end? We know Frank Reich loves him. Are you taking away Campbell? To me, if Campbell comes on the field, that means a whole lot more to a defense than if Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines are on the field together. Like, it just does. So, but I would think all of them. Mack, Taylor, Hines. Probably Hines the most because he gives you that split out wide element.
Sure. A lot more threats.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving forward, Wyatt. Wyatt, very simple question. Who has the most yards this season? Campbell, Pittman, or Pascal?
I'll say Campbell. I don't think, Pittman might have more catches, but I think Campbell will just get him in chunks.
Yeah.
It'll just be like 3 for 68, some of that stuff. So yeah, I'll go Campbell.
Cool. All right, Zachary here. Rappaport has reported a potential huge drop in the 2021 salary cap. If true, what would that mean for the Colts? I didn't see that report.
Yeah, obviously COVID related. We'll see how the season unfolds and just what the ramifications are in the cap. It's too early to tell. I would say one thing, Zachary, that I have my eye on is what does that mean for your veterans that are approaching the age of 30, are 30, Justin Houston in a contract year, Hilton in a contract year. Jack Doyle's got 2 more years left. I think the guarantees were heavily early on that. You hate to throw some of these names out there, but, that's the reality. Now, the good news is, again, you don't have the quarterback on that long-term mega deal. But still, I think some of those vets that are getting up there in age, those would be the guys that I'd be like, all right, what's exactly it going to look like for them?
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. All right, John here. Odds the Colts have 2 players in the Offensive Rookie of the Year debate. I assume he means Campbell and Taylor. Right?
Pittman.
Oh, Pittman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Pittman and Taylor. Yeah. Slim, John. It's just if that happens, you've had injuries to Marlon Mack and T.Y. Hilton. I just can't see how both of them are in the debate. The debate is probably. There's a lot of wideouts. Think about all those wideouts that were taken early.
Judy and
Judy Ruggs.
There's a guy who went to Dallas.
Lamb. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. You've got a lot of guys that are. And then running back wise, I don't know if Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be in it, given Kansas City's offense. But DeAndre Swift went to Detroit. You got to think he's going to be a big part of that offense. So.
You gotta think Joe Burrow's a front runner too.
Oh yeah. Gosh, great call. I didn't even think about the quarterbacks. So yeah, I would say Slim, John, but I expect one of them to be in it.
Awesome,
because debate. Sorry to interrupt, Ross, but debate is 3 to 4 people. It's not finalists, but you can debate things for a while.
Sure. All right, moving on to Joseph. Phillip Rivers over under TDs 31 and yards 4,300. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Joseph. I'll say slightly under on both. Yeah, just because I think your run game will have the commitment there. Slightly under on 31 TDs, and then yards. I'll go with I'll go 41.
Okay,
4,100.
Take it to your bookie, Joseph. All right, moving on to.
Let's do 6 more. I'll cut you off when we need to, but yeah, we've got a few more here, but we're kind of approaching an hour.
All right, you tell me. I'm having fun.
Yeah,
keep going.
And you're doing a hell
of a job. All right.
Per usual.
Preston here. Preston says, I believe there are 24 25 guys set to be free agents after the season. Pick 2 players that will have breakout high-impact seasons and be signed to a new deal, and name those 2 players who will falter this season. Therefore, not being re-signed by the Colts next offseason.
Yeah, it's a good question, Preston. And again, for people that missed it, check out the article up on the site where we run down all these names. I would say the high-impact breakout, that's a big, big phrase to use. I would say Grover Stewart gets another contract. I'm curious about Trey Burton. If he stays healthy and looks like the guy that Chicago had 2 years ago and Philly had when Frank Reich was there, I know he's a little bit on the older side. I think 28 or 29. I could see 2 or 3 year deal for him. The name that I'll mention that I don't know if I've ever mentioned on this podcast as a key ingredient, but I'll go with Al-Qadim Muhammad at defensive end. I think he's terrific on rundowns. And if you don't bring back Houston, then he could be a guy that could potentially be, or Autry leaves as well, maybe. He could be your guy on the early downs. Toure and Banogu are still squarely in the mix, but those are a couple names. Falter, Yeah, I'll go with the cop-out and say Hooker and Mack. I mean, I don't know if they're going to falter, but I just don't see where the numbers add up to them coming back.
Sure. All right, moving forward to I Am the Beast. What a name.
God.
That seems like a name that was put on the back of an XFL jersey. Like He Who Hate Me or He Hate Me.
He Hate Me, I love that. God, right. I miss the XFL.
I Am the Beast. That's probably what Ocho Cinco's name would have been if he was in the XFL. All right, a few years ago,
it's a long one.
Yeah. A few years ago, we've seen the Colts move from someone like John Simon, who in many accounts was one of our better players in the season before, albeit a bad year for the team. He was far from someone who was our worst player, and we've seen him walk. And while I was furious at the time, we've proven to not need him. A lot probably don't even remember that without bringing it up. Who is someone on this year's roster who could, be the same kind of the move? Not an obvious cut, maybe even played very well, but gets the axe. Okay. P.S. Congrats on Baby Bowen. Little girls still look good in Sunday red and Colts.
Oh, that's an understatement.
I Am the Beast. My niece Rosie Bowe will be wearing Sunday red almost every Sunday. Tigers in the mix.
Gosh, those are just magical words that my wife doesn't want to hear, but I'm glad you said them. All right. I know we talked a lot about Simon last week, and that was kind of the time to play the young guys, though. I mean, that was and we talked about that. I think you are past that a little bit. A lot of people probably would throw Danico Autry onto this list. I still think he gives you a versatile defensive end. I do. Xavier Rhodes would have to be a total flop, just a total camp flop for him to go there. And maybe Trey Burton if he can't stay healthy. So with some of these questions, people want me to give hot takes. And I throw the questions in there because you ask them, and that's what this podcast is all about, is the interaction. So I'm going to continue to ask these questions, but I'm not just going to throw out a hot take just to throw it out there. So I honestly don't think anybody jumps off the list at me with this. Guys I feel somewhat possible it might happen. I don't know. There's a couple names for you. I Am the Beast.
I Am the Beast. All right. Clayton here. Clayton asks, fast forward to the spring of 2022 following an almost perfect season, playoff run, and Super Bowl win. Wow. How do you think this pandemic will affect recruiting and scouting during the season and especially leading into the 2021 draft?
Yeah, it's a very niche question there, Clayton. It's all about relationships, and I think early homework. I would assume scouts will not be allowed to go watch practices in person this year at colleges. I go back to the Michael Pittman story I posted last week with Chris McGaha, the West scout for the Colts. Shout out to him getting married here in a couple weeks. He went to USC's practices and said Michael Pittman didn't lose one-on-one rep. Great, valuable, boots on the ground insight, and now you won't get that. So. Again, Jamie Moore, the Southeast scout. I remember him talking about Darius Leonard, watching him work out at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's just those type of where you see the maniac at that hour of the morning. That's just invaluable area scout homework. So what you need is this. You need your relationships of the people in-house. Do you know the strength coach at Ball State? Do you know the assistant defensive backs coach at Notre Dame? And they can give you some intel into who these guys are. Go back to high school days. For background checks, things like that. It's going to change things a lot. So I think relationships, early homework you did on the underclassmen, all of that will be huge.
Absolutely. Moving on here quickly to Andy. Congratulates you on the new baby.
Appreciate that, Andy.
Do you think there have been any discussions about the possibility of Braden Smith at left tackle once Anthony Costanzo retires?
No, I don't want to go there, Andy. Why are you risking two positions? Like, who would be your right tackle then? Now, all of a sudden, you have needs at both spots. And is it a slam dunk that Braden Smith's going to play left tackle and be good at it? Zero history there whatsoever. Played right guard and right tackle. Right guard for, I think, 39 games. Right tackle for 2 at Auburn. So I just don't. No, I don't see it, Andy.
Cool. Moving on to Irvin. Favorite Colts player with a number in the 20s?
You going all-time, Irvin?
Oh, I was thinking current, but yeah, I like all-time. All-time's easy.
Bob Sanders.
Yeah, easy Bob Sanders.
I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, just the ferocity that man played the game of football with is bar none.
Maybe Mike Doss.
Oh, there's a name. Look at Ross Lubbers pulling out the former Buckeye. Yeah, Sanders to me. Lock.
What about current roster?
God, I think of current guys. Probably, Kenny Moore would be the cop out at 23. What's Taylor? Taylor going to be 21 or something?
I'm not sure what his number is.
I'd have to look that up. I mean, there's not a lot of 20s. It's just kind of a lot of running backs. I feel
Malik.
like Marlon, 25. Yeah, Malik. No, okay, now we're naming a few. Xavier Rhodes, I think, is in that mix. But yeah, Kenny.
Cool.
Moore.
All right, moving on to Lucas. What position group or groups could be most affected by the COVID-19 shutdown for the Colts?
Yeah, it's a good question, Lucas. Teams got to start thinking about this. I go back to offensive line. I've bitched about the lack of depth there all offseason long. I'll continue to do it, and that's not even COVID related. Mm-hmm. And now imagine, Anthony Costanzo going down for 2 weeks or something like that. So yeah, I think that is O-line, maybe depth at wideout, tight end, but I would say mostly O-line for me.
Not quarterback?
I guess. I guess, but it's like you've got Brissett.
Yeah.
And honestly, if Eason gets thrown into the mix, I don't think it's the end of the world. Maybe it's the end of the world for the season, but at least you get to evaluate him.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, quarterback, I almost feel like that's kind of the obvious one.
Yep.
But still, from a backup quarterback standpoint, the Colts are in the best shape of probably every team in the league besides like 2 of them.
Cool. All right, going to do a little gambling here from Aaron. Over-unders. Over-under on Buckner, 9.5 sacks.
Under.
Pittman, 600 yards.
Over. That 600 yards isn't a ton. That's like 600 by 16. It's like probably like 35, 40 yards a game.
I'll say 40 a game. Hilton, 6.5 TDs.
Under.
Rivers, 4,200 yards.
What I say earlier, 41.
Yep.
Okay, slightly under.
Leonard, 150 tackles.
Under. I think that's more of a health question than anything. And hopefully he's not making as many tackles for the Colts' sake this year.
Kenny Moore, 2.5 interceptions.
Over.
Awesome. All right, Aaron, take it to your bookie.
Those are good.
Yep. All right, moving on to Wyatt, the second Wyatt of the day. At your 2021 Beers with Bowen or Claws with Bowen, depending on what your drink of choice is, event, which topic will dominate? 1, Colts Super Bowl win. 2, Colts disappointing season. 3, Rivers retires. 4, Luck unretires. 5, other. P.S. I haven't heard. How's baby Bowen and mom?
Oh, well, thank you for that, Wyatt. Let's start with your question. I mean, I'll go with other PS. Those are some storylines right there. Luck unretires, Rivers retires.
When are we going to stop getting questions about Luck unretiring?
Again, like I said last week's podcast, it's a 2 to 3 minute grieving period every week on Kevin's Corner. Kumbaya, light your candles, take your shot, move on. I would say Rivers retires is probably the most likely, like of your first 4. But I'll go with other PS. I'm a guy that needs to see camp. I need to see camp. I need to see some of the preseason. The over-under is what, 9 win? I mean, should we bet Rosie's college fund on the over on that?
I'm not betting Rosie's college fund on the over on that. I think what's interesting to me is that the definition of disappointing is going to be very widespread across the fan base. Sure. If they make it to the wild card and lose the wild card, is that considered disappointing, or what's the threshold for that?
That's fair. That's fair. I would say, again, I'm loosely throwing it out there. A winning season and a playoff appearance is kind of where I'm at right now. That's kind of the bar for me, I guess. But I want to see camp. I want to see the preseason for more reasons than one.
Awesome. Wyatt does ask, how's baby Bowen and mom?
Oh, Rosie's great. Again, sleeping well. My wife probably wants me to end this podcast soon so we can go attend to baby Rosie. But Maddie's been unbelievable. Champ throughout. And, Rosie's healthy, and she'll turn 3 weeks on Friday.
That's my girl. All right, 2 more Twitter questions, Kevin, then we'll go hang out with Rosie.
Cool.
Second to last one here is from Logan. If you were the Colts, what would you be doing to spark excitement and interest for fans to help motivate players during games? You can answer it here on the podcast if it makes it through the gauntlet.
It has, Logan. Thank you for sending. In-game experience at Lucas Oil. Yeah, we get a few of these every year. Well, one, become a more entertaining offense than you were last season. I mean, that's that's more product on the field. I would just like to see a livelier third down. Just get, I don't know, music, more people standing up and yelling. And it's just, I just have, maybe it's our Midwest hospitality. I've never thought Lucas Oil is a venue that's intimidating. Beautiful stadium. Unbelievable stadium. I think it's welcoming. But, like, I don't think it's hostile. Like, you walk into Arrowhead, and I'm like, oh, my God, that's hostile. You walk into Seattle, you were at Seattle, Indianapolis.
You and I went to Seattle for the, what was it, Thursday night or Sunday night game, and it's a whole different environment. So we get up on third down every now and again. Half the stadium gets up, but it's nothing.
It's just nothing compared to the other. I would put Lucas Oil as one of the quieter venues that I've been to. And I know the Colts have tried. They've looked into this. Their marketing people travels to road games and stuff. So, yeah, Logan, I don't know. I mean, this year I don't think, unfortunately, we'll have to worry about it too much because I don't see full capacity. But, yeah, thanks for the question.
Last one here from Tanner, a fun one. He says, hey, Kevin, hope you've been getting decent sleep, LOL. Odd question, but if you were to pick 3 Colts-themed names for a dog, what would they be? My girlfriend and I settled on Ballard for a 2-month German Shepherd, but just wanted to know if you've done any better. Best wishes to you, Maddie, and Rosie.
Oh, I appreciate that, Tanner. Man, dog names. You know, our dog growing up in the Bowen family was Rudy, obviously named after the outstanding pass rush specialist for Notre Dame, Rudy Rudiger. Rudy with an I, though, because she was a female. So we had a little bit of a twist there. Dog name Colts. Man, Tanner, Ballard didn't jump off the page at me.
Definitely not.
Not hating, no offense to your German Shepherd puppy, who I'm sure is beautiful, but
I think the obvious is Peyton.
Yes, yeah, long term, or I was thinking current Colts.
Oh, current, yeah.
I love the name Grover Stewart. For a dog, I think Quentin is a decent dog name.
Call it Q.
Call it Q, baby Q. How big your German Shepherd's going to be. Yeah. I mean, German Shepherd's a big dog. I think you got to go with a big old, Peyton is the obvious. That is the obvious. But, yeah, good luck, Tanner. Thank you for the question. All right, man. That was great. Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it.
Good.
Yeah, I hopefully, lived up to what Joey and Chris and Maddie even have done with you. But it was a lot of fun. Thanks to everyone for dealing with me on my first time here. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, hopefully the sound quality's been good for you guys. We'll be back. Chris is on vacation. I think we're going to do Tuesday, maybe Wednesday next week. I forget when he gets back. But thank you, Ross. You did an unbelievable job. You talk about next man up. Chuck Pagano will be proud of the effort that you gave today. So he's Ross Lubbers. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody, thanks for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. Have a great 4th of July. Safe 4th of July. We'll talk to you next week on Kevin's Corner.